It's another edition of Time About the Movies, and today we're taking a look at the films of July 19th, 1996. Now, I said yesterday there'd be 6 movies to look at, but another one of those weeks where one of the movies is on here, but I can literally find nothing for it. I can't find any clips for the film. I can't find any images for the film. That film is Girlfriends, by the way, so if I can't find anything, I just can't do a review for it, which I hadn't even seen the movie anyway, so it doesn't really matter at this point. But we still got 5 movies to look at. 5 notable films, actually. And we're going to start off with the first movie that we have here, and that is Peter Jackson's The Frighteners with Michael J. Fox. So this is a film this is the first American film done by Peter Jackson, who had been best known previously for his work on films such as Dead Again and Heavenly Creatures. The interesting thing about this movie, actually, is that this was supposed to be originally conceived as an episode of Tales from the Crypt, a spin-off film of Tales from the Crypt. Like, we had Bordello of Blood, and we also had Demon Knight. I'm guessing this would have been the 3rd film in that series. But they thought this film would be better off as a film directed by Jackson. They saw what he did with Dead Again. They saw his visual effects company, which had only been around for 3 years at this point, and they said, okay, we'll make your movie, and we'll put it out here. And everything seemed to go well, but then they had a rush post-production schedule because Universal was so impressed with what Jackson did with his original rough cut. They moved the film up 3 months, and I think because of that, the movie does not look as good as it probably should have been. Like, the movie is fun. Like, it is a fun concept. You got Michael J. Fox. You see Chi McBride, and also who's the other ghost in here? I can't remember the actor. Is it let me pause for 1 second. Jim Fife. That's who the other guy is. These are actors that work off each other very well. This has a really good cast overall. Trini Alvarado, Peter Dobson, John Astin, D. Wallace Stone, Jeffrey Combs. You got Arlie Ermey in here, basically playing the same role he did in Full Metal Jacket, which is completely pointless to the story, but it is still fun to watch him as a ghost in this. And Jake Busey's also in here as well. It's a fun movie. It's a really fun movie that I could definitely see as a Tales from the Crypt episode. This would have been a really interesting Tales from the Crypt episode, but when you watch this movie, the effects for this movie really do not hold up well on certain levels. Like, there's parts of the film where you could definitely tell they rushed the post-production because they were just so impressed by it, and they said, we'll put it up in the summertime instead of putting it out around Halloween. I feel like this movie, if they had just let him keep it where it was in October, this thing probably would have done a whole lot better, would have looked a whole lot better. But as it is, it's still a fun movie. It's still a fun film. There's still a lot of good jokes in there. There's still a lot of good, nice visual effects in there, too, that still kind of hold up after all these years. But you could definitely tell that there is some dated stuff as well. But the movie overall is a ton of fun. It does deliver everything it promises. It really could have been a whole lot better had they had just let the film come out in October, let them take their time with the post-production. But the fact that they rushed it out and put it out there, I think that hurt them big time in the end in terms of the box office numbers. But the film has since gone to have a cult following, and it did lead to Peter Jackson getting these bigger and more prominent film roles. And I think this was the film, if I'm not mistaken, that actually got him the Lord of the Rings. Because I think that's the next film he did after that, and of course the rest of that is history. And now he's become known as one of the biggest directors of all time, and one of the most notable people behind the scenes of all time as well. And really, that's all I got to say about this movie. I mean, it's a great film. It's a fun film. The visuals, I think, definitely could have used a little bit, is that longer pushback from what they were originally going to do. But other than that, though, most of the visuals in here are fun. There are definitely some dated stuff. There's some stuff in here that's just kind of okay. But overall, the movie is very, very fun. I'd highly recommend checking it out, especially if you're a big fan of Peter Jackson's work. If you haven't seen this movie, it's kind of a must-see to see this film. I think you will not be disappointed by it at all. I just wish the visuals were a little bit better, but in some areas. But for the most part, the movie does carry enough of a load to really recommend it for what it is. I mean, it's a ton of fun. The Frighteners, can't recommend it enough. So let's go ahead and move on to the next movie, and that is Lawrence Fishburne and Stephen Dorff in Fled. Man, this movie got old pretty quickly. I mean, Lawrence Fishburne is a great actor. Stephen Baldwin, not so much. I mean, he is really annoying in this movie. He will get on your nerves pretty quickly, and it's pretty clear that in this movie that their chemistry does not work very well. You're supposed to follow these two guys. They're chained together. They're supposed to be together on this adventure, and Lawrence Fishburne, I think, can't take it in this movie. Like, there's times in this movie where he's literally looking at him like, dude, are you freaking kidding me right now with this performance? I mean, Stephen Baldwin is not funny in this movie. I mean, I've seen him be decent in some other films, but man, it's movies like this that make you realize maybe Biodome wasn't the worst thing you'd ever be in, because man, this is not a good performance. This is not a good performance at all, but it doesn't help that the script is pretty formulaic. I mean, we've seen this done over and over again, and the director of this and the writer of this, I think, have done much better works. This is the director that did Passenger 57, and also this is the writer of This Christmas, which is a completely different film from this, but I think it's a much better film. He also rewrote Be Cool. He's done a lot of other stuff that have been much better than this. This is just not an interesting movie at all, and it doesn't help that the chemistry between the two leads does not work very well here at all. It's a shame, too, because I think there is some potential here with this, but it's mostly been there, done that. We've seen the story done over and over again, and Stephen Baldwin, this just kind of kills it a little bit. I mean, I can't believe I'm saying this, but his performance in Biodome was Citizen Kane compared to this performance in here. I mean, he gets on your nerves so fast. I ever seen the movie Deliverance, just like, shut up. Like Lawrence Fishburne looks at him in this movie like, shut up, just please, just shut the hell up. Yeah, that's Fled. So, let's go ahead and move on to the next movie, and that is Michael Keaton starring in Harold Ramis's Multiplicity. So this is Harold Ramis coming up after Groundhog Day was a big hit, and he had done Stuart Saves His Family, which I think is a very underrated comedy that came out a year prior to this. And this is Michael Keaton's star power had been established with Batman and was kind of on the downward before making a comeback later on in the decade. It also didn't help that the movie kind of got negative reviews, but overshadowed mostly by the big success of Independence Day, and a much bigger comedy that I'll talk about in just a little bit. But I think the movie actually is a lot funnier than I think most people give it credit for. I mean, this whole idea that Michael Keaton has never really made any good movies after he made Batman and Beetlejuice is just complete BS. I mean, he does this, then he follows it up with two great films, Jackie Brown and Out of Sight a few years later. Like, I think that we could put that. I think we could have put that narrative down easily at that point. But Keaton is just really funny in this movie. He does such a great job of creating these different personalities for these clones, and each one are legitimately funny to watch. I love the fact that every time they clone him by using a different clone, he gets stupider. The clone gets stupider and stupider with every one, and it's legitimately funny. And he actually has some nice chemistry with Andy McDowell in this as well. Andy McDowell, of course, previously teamed up with Ramis for Groundhog Day. But the effects in this movie really do hold up well. Like, when Michael Keaton shows up multiple times, like for 1996, it's amazing that these visuals still hold up very well. And Keaton is allowed to appear in the scene as many times as he does here. And honestly, the movie, I think, got overshadowed because, of course, of The Nutty Professor. That was the film where Eddie Murphy is playing multiple roles. He's not just Sherman Klump and Buddy Love, but also the family as well. And it's a far superior film. And I think that was really what kind of killed this movie's buzz back then. But really, when you look at both movies, obviously The Nutty Professor is going to win. Murphy overall transformed himself to play these multiple roles in The Nutty Professor. And Keaton, yeah, he does a great job creating personalities for these clones, but the effort that they went to in The Nutty Professor, I think, just pales in comparison to what happens here. Not to say that, not saying that Michael Keaton is bad in the movie. I think he does a very good job playing these multiple roles. This film is not up to par with some of Harold Ramis's other works, but I think it deserves a lot more attention than most people give it credit for. It's funny. It shows that Michael Keaton still has the comedic chops after all these years. The visuals still hold up. It's a genuinely funny comedy that I still think should get more love than it does. And I think it's a really good film. I highly recommend checking it out. Harold Ramis's Multiplicity. Fantastic film to watch with Michael Keaton in it. So, let's go ahead and take a look at one of the worst movies of the year, arguably one of the worst movies of all time, and that is Shaquille O'Neal starring in Kazam. So a white kid owns a black genie, and he basically is saying that he owns them. Yeah, there's certain elements there that the writers of this movie probably should have looked at and go, "Are you sure you want to go this route?" Because Oh man, Shaquille O'Neal, what happened to you, man? Shaquille O'Neal has proven to be a good actor. I've seen him in movies where he's actually been pretty good. I mean, Blue Chips was actually really good with him and Nick Nolte, and it's Scary Movie 4. He has a cameo in the opening bit of the film, and it's actually legitimately funny with him and Dr. Phil. But this is a mess, man. Like, what were they thinking? I mean, this is a film where I think they just had so many ideas where this could have easily been. They could have easily fixed this around, but I think this was a film that was kind of rushed because, of course, Shaquille O'Neal was still playing basketball at the time of this movie coming out, and I think he was still with the Magic at this point, or he may have just gone to the Los Angeles Lakers a year prior to this. I don't know for sure. Don't quote me on that, but because I know he was drafted originally by the Orlando Magic, and he was there for a couple of years, and I think maybe '96 is when he came to the Lakers. Let me double check that just to make sure. Yeah, it was 1996. So this was before he even took the court for the Lakers. Like, this was back before he and Kobe Bryant eventually teamed up and eventually created another dynasty with them. So, I mean, this was a film that was really. Shaquille O'Neal basically did what LeBron James eventually did by joining the Lakers. To just go out and do movies, do Space Jam 2, and become a producer and all that. And I mean, I think LeBron James is a far superior actor than Shaquille O'Neal, and especially in a movie like this. But really, you could just tell everything about this movie was rushed. There was nothing about this film that made a whole lot of sense. I mean, in the same year we had Space Jam with Michael Jordan in it, and Michael Jordan, it worked because Michael Jordan was playing Michael Jordan. It wasn't him playing a character, which I think Michael Jordan could play a character, but in Space Jam, all he had to do was play Michael Jordan, and it worked. And we'll eventually delve into that once we get into Space Jam. But in Kazam, this was just a bad idea. This was just a bad concept overall. Maybe it could have worked if the script hadn't been rushed, if there would actually been more effort put into it, if people would have seen the idea and be like, hey, let's look at this idea and figure out a way to actually make it work tolerable, make it something that doesn't feel like it's being rushed onto you. But man, everything about this movie is rushed and ugly. It's an ugly looking film. It's a film that's not funny. It's not creative. It wastes the talent that it has on board here. Some of the visuals in here look absolutely horrible. And man, it's just a mess of a film. It's just a film that is it's so bad on so many levels. Like, it's a movie that really is, like, I mean, but hey, at least Shaquille O'Neal even admits that he did this just for the money. I mean, the dude got paid $7 million to be in this movie, and he basically said in an interview, "When am I going to say no to that?" I mean, at that point, really, could you really blame him for it? I mean, this was before. Granted, keep in mind, this was filmed before he eventually joined the Lakers, so he didn't get that big payday until he eventually joined the Lakers. So yeah, you figure, you know what? On that level, I could see why he did it, but man, this is just not a good film. Maybe some people can see it as a so bad it's good type of movie, but man, this is not a good film. It's a mess on so many levels. It's Kazam. What the hell did you think it was going to be? So, anyway, with that said, let's end the show on a much more positive note. Let's take a look at our last movie here, Danny Boyle's Trainspotting. This is, of course, Danny Boyle's second film, and it's the film that catapulted him into superstardom. In fact, it did that for a lot of people in this movie. Ewan McGregor, this was the film that eventually got him the role of the young Obi-Wan in Star Wars, in the Star Wars prequels. Johnny Lee Miller's in here, Robert Carlyle from the Full Monty, Kelly MacDonald. Just this movie has so many notable names to it, and the film is really damn good. It's a film that still holds up after all these years. You basically follow this group of heroin addicts in this town, their passages through life, and they go through all these crazy things that go on, like the infamous baby scene is one. The infamous baby scene is one, for example, and beyond the drug addiction, other themes in the film include an exploration of the urban poverty and squalor in Edinburgh, where this is filmed at. And really, that's pretty much everything I got to say about this film, because sorry about that, I had a couple of burps there. So anyway, as I was saying before I was so rudely interrupted, you pretty much got the gist of what the movie is and what the movie's lasting longevity is. I mean, it's a classic film. It's the film that launched Danny Boyle's career into the stratosphere. Launched a number of big people in this. It was voted one of the best Scottish film of all time, and there was apparently a sequel to it that I completely forgot even existed. But Danny Boyle directed it too. I've actually never seen it. I remember them talking about it. I remember seeing a trailer for it, and it just kind of went away. I mean, I don't know. I don't know if it's actually good or not, but there's a sequel for it somewhere, and hopefully some point down the line I'll definitely check it out. But really, it's a damn good movie. It's a funny comedy. It's got a lot of good emotional moments. The acting is top-notch. The visuals are still impressive. The weird, freaky moments are still very freaky. It's a film that has a legacy in the cultural significance. You see the scenes from this movie being parodied numerous times in other properties. Family Guy, Drawn Together, just so many other different things. I mean, what more do I even need to say about it? Trainspotting, it's a classic film. If you haven't seen it already, you're doing yourself a huge disservice by not doing so. So on that note, we wrap up this edition of Time About the Movies, and we'll wrap up July on the next episode. We've got Joel Schumacher's A Time to Kill, based off the novel by John Grisham. We also have the Farrelly Brothers follow-up to Dumb and Dumber, Kingpin, Jackie Chan and Super Cop, Jonathan Taylor Thomas and Martin Landau on The Adventures of Pinocchio, the feature film adaptation of Joe's Apartment, Stonewall, and Manny and Lowe. So 7 movies to look at on the next episode. We'll delve into all of those next time. But until then, thank you very much for watching, and if you want to see more videos like this, please hit the playlist on the next page, check out the previous episode, and I'll see you guys tomorrow for another episode. So thank you very much for watching. I'll see you next time, and until then, as always, take care.